My stepmom and step-siblings kicked me out, but they forgot I own the house. Now it's time to take it back. It never crossed my mind, not once, that my dad's super detailed estate plan would actually tear our family apart. There's a lot to unpack here, and I want to make sure you get the full picture, so let's start at the beginning. I'm a senior software architect at a big tech company in Seattle. My dad always envisioned this kind of career for me. Technology is the future, he'd proudly declare after I got into the UW's computer science program. He wasn't a tech guy himself. He ran a successful construction business. But he had an uncanny knack for predicting trends. Dad started his construction business from scratch during the late 1980s recession, one of the toughest times for the industry. He took on projects other contractors wouldn't touch. Just him, his pickup truck, and his tools. Mom tells me they lived in a tiny apartment back then and were super frugal. But Dad had this unshakable belief in his vision. He'd often say, the key is to build relationships, not just buildings. That mindset carried him through those tough early years. What made Dad's business truly unique was how he treated both clients and employees. He firmly believed in transparent pricing and realistic schedules, even if it meant losing bids to rivals who promised unrealistic deadlines. First, build trust, he'd advise. The profits will follow. And he was right. By the mid-1990s, his business, known for intricate restoration projects requiring both technical skill and historical sensitivity, became prominent in Seattle. His dedication to clients and staff helped his company survive the 2008 financial crisis when many construction companies went under. He didn't lay off a single employee. Instead, he cut his own income to zero and took out a second mortgage on his beloved Mustang. Watching him navigate that crisis taught me more about leadership than any management course ever could. He'd tell me, "Your employees are your extended family. You take care of them. They'll take care of your business." I didn't realize then how much his management philosophy would influence my own career. When I became a team lead at my software company, I applied many of his ideas. Just as he kept meticulous project logs for every construction site, I implemented thorough documentation procedures for our code. His focus on fostering strong relationships helped me guide my development team through challenging project deadlines. A new chapter and a growing family, I met Emily, 34, at a hackathon during my junior year. She was helping organize the event while studying business administration. Despite my lack of sleep, energy drink addiction, and probably messy appearance, she somehow found my love of code charming. My dad fell in love with her from the moment he met her. After their first dinner together, he told me, "She grounds you. Don't let this one get away." After college, Dad even helped Emily launch her own marketing firm, introducing her to his network of local business owners, showing her how he drafted contracts and sharing his business goals. He'd tell us, "Success isn't just about what you know. It's about helping others succeed too." Dad was always sharing his knowledge and mentoring during those formative years. The heart of our home, Dad's legacy. Those Sunday dinners at my parents' house were special. We'd drive over, sit on the back deck Dad had built, and talk about everything and nothing while he fired up the grill. Even though he couldn't grasp most of the technical details of my latest work, he'd still ask insightful questions. Mom used to playfully roll her eyes and say, "There they go again with the computer talk." The house itself was Dad's pride and joy. He bought it in the 1990s with the profits from his first major construction job, a historic restoration project that made his business famous in one of Seattle's older neighborhoods. This beautiful craftsman-style home has a wraparound porch and a garage he transformed into the most organized workshop you've ever seen. Every tool has its place, labeled and positioned with almost fanatical precision. Dad treated the house as a living testament to his skill. Every renovation was meticulously planned and documented in a detailed spreadsheet he maintained. "A house is like a living thing," he'd say, showing me how to clean gutters or inspect the foundation. He had a rigorous maintenance schedule, from checking the roof after winter storms to changing air filters. Neglect the little things, and they become big problems. The workshop wasn't just his sanctuary. It was a classroom where he taught me about more than just tools. He'd completely renovated the garage himself, adding custom storage and a workbench specially designed for teaching me woodworking. As we worked, he'd say, "Every piece of wood has its own story. Our job is to help tell that story." The pegboard, wall with its delineated shapes for each tool, wasn't just about organization. It was his way of teaching me that everything has a place and a purpose. Life lessons in the garage. Our family held weekends in that garage in high regard. Dad and I would spend hours working on his 1967 Mustang. He'd bought it when I was 12 for restoration, claiming it would be a project that would strengthen our bond as father and son. That car became a classroom for life lessons. His advice, which I still live by today, was simple. Always use the right tool for the job. And shortcuts look tempting, but they'll cost you in the long run. While Dad could have finished the Mustang project in a year if he wanted, it took 3, but he was more interested in the process than the final destination. I learned everything from project management to basic mechanics from him. We took pictures of every part we replaced, recorded each step, and kept detailed logs of our progress. "This isn't just about fixing a car," he'd affirm. "It's about learning how to break down big problems into manageable pieces." I found that lesson incredibly helpful in my career as a software developer. After Emily and I got married, we bought a small home about 20 minutes from my parents' house. Dad helped us with the down payment, though he insisted we take out the mortgage in our names. "You need to build your own credit history," he clarified. "It's about standing on your own feet." On weekends, he'd work on our renovations, teaching me how to install ceiling fans and fix drywall. Even back then, he was preparing me for the responsibilities of homeownership. At this time, my career was really taking off. I'd just been promoted to team lead, overseeing a team-building infrastructure solutions. I loved every second of it, even if the hours were long and the stress was high. During my lunch breaks, Dad would often call to check in without discussing anything specific. He understood the demands of managing a team and overseeing others' work. "Remember to delegate," he'd say. "You can't do everything yourself, just like I can't build a house alone." The unthinkable happens. When Dad first started feeling exhausted all the time, we were actually discussing starting a family. Despite Mom's insistence, he kept putting off seeing a doctor. "Just working too hard," he'd dismiss our worries. He was working on his largest project to date, a multi-million-dollar development deal that would have secured his business for the next decade. In retrospect, I regret not pushing harder and insisting on those examinations sooner. Perhaps things might have turned out differently. At the time, the business was expanding rapidly. Dad had recently opened a second office in Portland and was talking about growing into historical restoration projects across the Pacific Northwest. He'd built a reputation for updating the infrastructure of historic buildings without sacrificing their character. He'd tell his clients, it's about embracing the future while respecting the past. Everything he accomplished, both personally and professionally, was influenced by his love of preservation. Our last meaningful discussion was about the Mustang. He was talking about taking it to car shows now that we'd finished the restoration. "We should sign up for the Pacific Northwest Classic," he remarked, his eyes glowing like a child. He continued to plan for the future until the very end, saying, "Show these youngsters what a real muscle car looks like." It started like any other morning until everything changed. My phone buzzed during an early meeting. We were in the middle of an important project conversation, so I almost didn't answer. But for some reason, I had to step out and take it. Mom was crying so hard she could barely speak. Dad had collapsed on a construction site. By the time I arrived at the hospital, he was gone. The doctor said it was a sudden and severe heart attack. He was only 58. The weeks after Dad's passing were a blur of grief and bureaucracy. The funeral was packed. Dad's business and community involvement had touched countless people. Suppliers, contractors, even rival businesses came to show their support. Everyone shared a story about how Dad had helped them, offered advice, or simply been there when they needed someone to confide in. One old craftsman told me how Dad had kept him on the payroll despite being unable to work during a prolonged illness. "Your father understood that business was about people first," he stated. The company's employees were heartbroken. Many of them had known Dad for decades and shared stories I'd never heard before. How he'd paid for one foreman's daughter's college textbooks, helped another through a divorce, or stayed late to teach apprentices the nuances of historical restoration. The office conference room was transformed into an unofficial memorial with pictures and handwritten notes from both clients and employees. Dad's meticulous plan, we were all surprised by how thoroughly Dad had prepared for everything. His attorney, Mr. Anderson, called us in for a meeting a week after the funeral. He pulled out this enormous accordion file, neatly handwritten by Dad, titled Family Security Protocol. Inside were dozens of carefully organized papers with comprehensive instructions for various aspects of his estate. Mr. Anderson gave me a 3-day tour of Dad's estate paperwork. Each color-coded folder contained not only legal documents, but also personal notes outlining his decisions. "I've never seen an estate plan this thorough in my 35 years of practice," Mr. Anderson remarked. Dad had even included a 5-year business transition plan with backup strategies for various scenarios. After that, Mom started attending her church's bereavement support group. She first mentioned Steve, 58, casually. Steve suggested this great book about healing. Or, Steve said it's normal to feel this way. He was one of the group facilitators and had lost his wife to cancer 2 years earlier. Even if it seemed a little early, I was happy she was getting support. Emily reminded me that everyone experiences grief in their own way. The church grief support group met every Tuesday night. Before long, Mom was attending church functions with Steve more often. After-service coffee gatherings became lunch meetings, which turned into dinner dates. Our family friends began to worry about how quickly their friendship was developing. At a family get-together, my Aunt Jane pulled me aside, concerned that Mom was rushing into things to compensate for Dad's absence. Mom's changes became more apparent. Her haircut changed, she started dressing differently, and she even ripped out the garden Dad had helped her create. Every time I questioned these changes, she'd respond, "It's time for a fresh start." The woman who used to spend hours narrating her life with him now hardly mentioned Dad. It happened more quickly than any of us anticipated. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom announced that Steve was moving in. His grown children, James, 30, and Lisa, 32, felt it would be beneficial to bring life back into the house. I tried to be sympathetic, but it felt like she was in a rush to replace everything Dad had built. I'm at a crossroads right now. How can I preserve Dad's legacy without jeopardizing Mom's chances for happiness? Emily advises me to strike a balance, but I can't help but think of Dad's letter. "Son, preserve those memories." Update 1. The disrespect escalates. I apologize for the delay in this update and appreciate all the advice you gave on my previous post. 3 months have passed since my last update, and things have gotten much worse. Steve's domineering demeanor used to just bother me, but now he acts as though he owns the house my dad left me. Last month, Steve decided to start a significant restoration project without even asking my permission. When I visited one weekend, contractors were tearing out the built-in bookshelves my dad had made for the living room. Steve was overseeing them, directing them to just throw all this old wood in the dumpster. These were more than just shelves. They were the last project Dad and I worked on together before he got sick. When I approached him, he responded angrily. "Look, son," he said, with a condescending emphasis on the pronoun. "This house needs to be brought into the 21st century. Your father's taste was, well, dated. We're doing you a favor by increasing the property value." I reminded him that any Modifications required my consent legally. Mom obviously agreed with him. He just chuckled and added, "Your mother and I live here. We don't need permission to improve our home." "Steve knows about these things," she acknowledged. "He's just trying to help." The woman who used to love those bookshelves and display her collection of antique teacups on them for Christmas now acts as though they were just taking up room. I showed her Dad's thorough house maintenance plans, but she disregarded them as dwelling in the past. A family divided. Additionally, my relationship with Steve's children has deteriorated. James has taken over Dad's workshop and transformed it into a CrossFit facility. While I was on a business trip, he held a garage sale and sold most of Dad's tools. Lisa is treating the space as though it were her own personal design project, repainting rooms and installing modern vinyl planks in place of Dad's meticulously refinished hardwood floors. One evening after dinner, Steve pulled me aside and said, "Since we're paying to live here, we should have our names on the deed. It's only fair." I had to explain to him that they don't pay a mortgage because Dad's planning has paid for the house in full. They don't even cover rent. All maintenance expenses, insurance, and property taxes are paid by me. Emily recommended that we stop making weekly visits now. She's right. No one benefits from the stress in that household. However, taking a back seat has only made Steve more confident. He started sending me bills for improvements I never approved, and he began making them more regularly.